China, once hailed as an economic miracle, now finds itself grappling with a surge of public discontent. Across the country, from bustling metropolises to rural villages, a wave of unrest is sweeping through the nation. This wave of protests reflects a growing sense of frustration and disillusionment with the ruling Communist Party and its increasingly powerful leader, Xi Jinping. These are not the large-scale, overtly political demonstrations that have toppled governments in other parts of the world. Instead, they are often localized, targeted expressions of anger over specific economic grievances, such as job losses or rising living costs. At the heart of this unrest lies a palpable sense of economic insecurity, which has been growing over the past few years. For decades, the Chinese people have endured political repression in exchange for the promise of prosperity and a better life. The Chinese economic miracle, fueled by breakneck industrialization and rapid urbanization, lifted millions out of poverty and created a burgeoning middle class with rising expectations. However, that implicit social contract, stability for economic progress, is beginning to fray. Stagnant wages, soaring living costs, and a widening wealth gap have left many feeling left behind and disillusioned. The anxieties run particularly deep among China's middle class, who are now questioning whether their hard work and sacrifices will continue to translate into a brighter future for themselves and their children. The once reliable path to upward mobility through education, hard work, and property ownership is becoming increasingly precarious. Housing prices in major cities have skyrocketed, pricing many out of the market and leaving them saddled with crippling debt. Meanwhile, the slowing economy has resulted in job losses, particularly in sectors like technology and manufacturing that were once seen as engines of growth. Adding to the sense of unease is a growing awareness of official corruption and inequality. Stories of corrupt officials enriching themselves at the expense of ordinary citizens circulate widely on social media, fueling public cynicism and resentment. The conspicuous consumption of the wealthy elite, often flaunted on social media platforms, stands in stark contrast to the struggles of ordinary citizens, further exacerbating social tensions. As the gap between rich and poor continues to widen, many feel that the system is rigged against them, leaving them with little hope for a better future. The seeds of discontent have been sown, and the future remains uncertain. For years, the Chinese government has touted the Chinese dream, a vision of national rejuvenation and prosperity for all. This dream was meant to inspire hope and ambition, promising a brighter future for every citizen. Yet, for many ordinary citizens, this dream feels increasingly out of reach. The promises of prosperity seem hollow as they face daily struggles. The middle class, once the bedrock of China's economic miracle, is now grappling with the harsh realities of a slowing economy and dwindling opportunities. The optimism that once fueled their hard work is fading. Their dreams of homeownership, a good education for their children, and a secure retirement are slipping away, replaced by anxieties about job security, rising living costs, and a future that seems less certain than ever before. The sense of stability they once enjoyed is now a distant memory. The plight of China's middle class is perhaps most acutely felt in the country's overheated property market. The dream of owning a home has turned into a nightmare for many. For years, real estate has been seen as a one-way bet, a safe haven for savings and a symbol of status and achievement. It was a cornerstone of financial security. Fueled by easy credit and speculative investment, property prices in major cities have soared to astronomical levels, far outpacing wage growth. This has created a bubble that many fear could burst. This has left many young people and families struggling to afford even a modest apartment, forcing them to pour their savings into ever smaller and more distant homes, or resign themselves to a life of renting in cramped, overpriced apartments. The dream of a spacious home is now a distant fantasy. The dream of owning a home, once a cornerstone of middle-class aspiration in China, is now a source of anxiety and frustration for many. The pride of ownership has been replaced by the stress of financial strain. Young couples delay marriage and starting families because they cannot afford the exorbitant down payments demanded by lenders. The societal pressure to own a home before starting a family adds to their burden. Parents dip into their retirement savings or take on crippling debt to help their children get on the property ladder, fearing that they will be priced out forever if they wait any longer. This intergenerational financial strain is becoming a common story. The pressure is immense, and the stakes are high. The weight of these financial burdens is taking a toll on mental health and family relationships. The economic anxieties extend beyond housing. The cost of living is another major concern. The rising cost of living, fueled by inflation and a weakening currency, is putting a strain on household budgets. Every trip to the store is a reminder of their shrinking purchasing power. Healthcare costs are skyrocketing, education expenses are becoming increasingly burdensome, and even the price of basic necessities like food and transportation is creeping upwards. These essential costs are becoming harder to manage. This relentless pressure on living standards is eroding the purchasing power of the middle class, forcing them to make difficult choices and sacrifice their aspirations for a better life. The dream of upward mobility is being replaced by the struggle to maintain their current standard of living. In a country where public dissent is swiftly silenced, the Chinese people have found subtle, yet increasingly bold, ways to express their discontent. Despite the risks, they continue to push the boundaries of what is permissible, seeking to make their voices heard in a tightly controlled society. Online forums and social media platforms, once tightly controlled by the government's sophisticated censorship apparatus, have become virtual town squares where citizens gather to vent their frustrations, share grievances, and mobilize for collective action. These digital spaces have evolved into crucial arenas for public discourse, where the pulse of the nation can be felt. While overt criticism of the Communist Party or Xi Jinping remains taboo, citizens have become adept at using coded language, satire, and dark humor to circumvent censorship and express their dissatisfaction with the status quo. This creative resistance has become a hallmark of modern Chinese dissent. The protests themselves are often small-scale and localized, focusing on specific issues such as stalled housing projects, unpaid wages, or inadequate social services. These targeted demonstrations highlight the everyday struggles faced by ordinary citizens. Construction workers who have gone unpaid for months gather at construction sites, demanding their rightful earnings. Their plight underscores the broader issues of labor rights and economic justice in the country. Frustrated homeowners who have invested their life savings in unfinished or poorly constructed apartments stage protests outside government offices, seeking redress for their grievances. Their actions reflect a deep-seated frustration with systemic corruption and mismanagement. Retirees whose pensions have been mismanaged or depleted take to the streets, demanding financial security in their twilight years. Their protests are a poignant reminder of the vulnerabilities faced by the elderly in a rapidly changing society. While these protests may seem disparate and unconnected, they are united by a common thread of economic anxiety and a growing sense that the government is failing to address the needs of its people. This shared sentiment is fueling a broader movement for accountability and change. The protesters are not revolutionaries seeking to overthrow the system. They are ordinary citizens pushed to their limits, desperate for their voices to be heard and their grievances addressed. Their demands are rooted in a desire for fairness and justice. They are teachers, doctors, factory workers, and shopkeepers, the backbone of Chinese society, who feel that the promises of prosperity and a better life have been broken. Their collective disillusionment is a powerful force for change. The government, acutely aware of the potential for these localized protests to escalate into broader unrest, has responded with a mix of appeasement and repression. This dual approach aims to maintain stability while addressing immediate concerns. In some cases, local officials have moved quickly to address the protesters' demands, hoping to diffuse tensions before they can spread. Their actions are often a calculated effort to prevent larger-scale dissent. They have dispersed back pay to disgruntled workers, promised to investigate allegations of corruption, and pledged to expedite the completion of stalled housing projects. These measures are intended to placate the immediate concerns of the protesters. However, these concessions are often seen as too little, too late, doing little to address the underlying systemic issues driving the unrest. The root causes of dissatisfaction remain unaddressed, leaving the potential for future protests ever present. While the roots of China's current unrest run deep, there is no doubt that the trade war with the United States, initiated in 2018, has exacerbated the country's economic woes and fueled public anger. The tariffs imposed by both sides, initially intended as leverage in trade negotiations, have had a ripple effect throughout the global economy, disrupting supply chains, raising prices for consumers, and slowing economic growth. For China, a country heavily reliant on exports and foreign investment, The impact has been particularly acute. The trade war has exposed the vulnerabilities of China's export-oriented growth model, which relies heavily on selling manufactured goods to the United States and other developed economies. With tariffs driving up the cost of Chinese goods, many American companies have begun to diversify their supply chains, seeking alternative sources of production in countries like Vietnam, India, and Mexico. This shift away from China has cost the country millions of jobs, particularly in manufacturing hubs in the Pearl River Delta and Yangtze River Delta regions. The trade war has also taken a toll on foreign investment in China, as companies become increasingly wary of the risks of doing business in a country locked in a protracted trade dispute with the United States. The uncertainty surrounding the future of US-China relations has made it difficult for businesses to plan for the long term, leading some to delay or cancel investment projects in China. This decline in foreign investment has further slowed economic growth, exacerbated job losses, and contributed to the sense of economic anxiety gripping the country. Beyond the direct economic impact, the trade war has also had a profound psychological effect on the Chinese people. For decades, the country's economic rise has been a source of immense national pride, a testament to the Communist Party's ability to deliver prosperity and improve the lives of its citizens. However, the trade war has shattered this narrative of unyielding progress, exposing the limits of China's economic model and raising doubts about the government's ability to navigate the country through increasingly turbulent economic waters.